Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer of jakestake.com, a pop culture news website. Now, if you're watching this on our audio platforms or listening to this on our audio platforms, please give us a 5-star rating and please subscribe. Please download this episode and more episodes. If you're listening to this on our audio platform, if you're watching us on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe and comment below. I am so excited today because I'm very excited to welcome our latest guest. She is a singer-songwriter, and as of this recording, has over 10,000 Facebook fans and 68,500 Instagram followers. And her music has been featured on Once to Watch, Radio 1 India, and Rolling Stone India. Podcast.
Hello, it's so nice to be here with you.
You didn't expect that, did you?
No.
I always do that to my folks. Like, the thing is, I was like feeling like the Ed McMahon years ago on the Tonight Show, or same with the Arsenio Hall show. Like when how they were introducing their guests with Arsenio Hall. So yes. I kind of saw that.
That's incredible.
All right, so Nikitaa, when did you get interested in performing, and how did that passion evolve into desire to pursue a career in the music industry?
Oh my gosh. So I have this very vivid memory. I was, I think, 3. Yeah, I was about 3, and I was watching one of my cousins on stage. She was doing a dance recital, like an Indian classical dance recital. And I looked at her. We were sitting in the front row. My mom was right next to me. And I looked at my mom and I said, someday that's going to be me. And she was like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah, so you need to get me all the teachers. We need to do this. And I badgered her. I actually badgered her until she got me a dance instructor and a voice lesson teacher and a piano teacher. So I started out really young, and I was on and off the stage for a lot of different things since I was a kid. We would put up these shows in our neighborhood every year, every summer. And I would always participate. I would, dance and act and all kinds of things. I just loved being on the stage. I knew from the age of 3, I guess, that this is what I wanted to do.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's amazing how we were like, sometimes, like, I remember when I wanted to work in, be in front of, like, perform or like entertain or just to be in front of a crowd. It was basically preschool as well. So very young age.
Yeah. And then around 2015 is when I finally came to LA. I went to Musicians Institute and I pursued an associate's degree. And I think that was kind of just like a gateway for me to get to know more people, get to know what it's like to work out here. And I just stuck around, and I spent, I think, all of 2017 really writing songs in the studio recording. And I put my first song out in 2018 and just been putting out music ever since.
And that's amazing. The thing is, it's like no matter where you start or you stop, at least you put out something, you put it out to the universe.
Yeah.
All righty. So who are the musicians that inspired your sound?
Oh, wow. There's a wide variety. I think I've listened to a lot of seemingly rather very different genres of music. My mom kind of raised me on 50s, 60s Bollywood. And then my brother really loved 90s Bollywood. And he was also just a big classic rock head. So we would listen to like a lot of Metallica, Iron Maiden, Aerosmith, et cetera, et cetera. Excuse me. And I kind of grew up with that. And as I got older, I kind of got into pop music. So I'd listen to like Leanne Rimes, Whitney Houston, Beyonce, Rihanna, and sort of started to get into more of like the main pop music. And I think like that's where my influences really started to develop, because I do love the writing style of a lot of rock music and Bollywood music. It's very poetic, lots of metaphors, just very intense. But I love the musicality of Beyonce and Whitney Houston. I would put on concerts really in my mom's room and my parents' room, and I would just sing Whitney Houston songs and Beyonce songs, and they slowly started to request different songs over the years. But that's kind of, I would say, like my core influences. And then as I got older, I fell in love with Frank Ocean, John Bellion, And both of them have such different writing styles and production styles, but I love them so much. And I would say like Beyonce, Frank Ocean, and John Bellion are my main influences at this point.
That's awesome, by the way. Cowboy Carter was fabulous.
Just wow. No words. Absolutely incredible. I think it could be studied in college courses for years to come. A moving piece of art and history. What an album.
Absolutely. Definitely one of the best albums of the year so far. So I definitely say that. Now, it'd be interesting. Has Frank Ocean and Beyonce collaborate?
Yeah, they have. I think they have 2 collaborations. They have Superpower, which is on Beyonce's self-titled album. And then they also have an unofficial collab on Frank's album Blonde called Pink Plus White. Beyonce actually did backing vocals on that. She's not even, there's no like Pink Plus White featuring Beyonce. It's just her voice shows up in the middle of the song and you know it's her. It's incredible.
It is. But we're not here to talk about Beyonce. We're here to talk about you, Nikitaa.
Yes.
All right, so let's get started because every time I bring on an artist, I always want to talk about the stories behind some of their songs. So today it's all about you. So let's start off with one of my favorites that I featured on my blog, Godless. And when I was listening to it, it reminded me a lot of bits and pieces of Ariana's God is a Woman.
Yeah, I love Ariana Grande. Her vocals are stellar. When I read your review, I was just really moved. I just, it made me feel so good inside to be seen that way.
Thank you. I'm so glad you liked the review. So let's talk about another one. So Throne, as of right through this recording, the 152,000 Spotify streams.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
What's the story behind Throne?
Oh, the story behind Throne was, honestly, I was very inspired by some of the albums that I was listening to at the time. I was listening to, I believe Age of Pleasure by Janelle Monáe was already out. So I was listening to a lot of that. And I was also listening to a lot of Renaissance. And I was just deeply inspired by both those albums. And I think there's something to be said about a lot of my inspirations being very genre bendy, just not caring about what genre their music is sitting in. And both of those albums have this quality of just fun and sensuality to them. And I kind of just wanted to go there for myself. I was walking into every session at the time just saying, I just want to make something fun. I would go in with no brief, no theme, no lyric idea, just go in and say, I just want to make something fun and see what came out of it. And that's what happened with Throne. So my co-creators, Danny and Sal, they just took it and they ran with it. I told them what I was listening to at the time, and we just started doing like the strangest things. A lot of the sounds that you hear in that song are just Danny getting on the mic and just singing gibberish, really. Honestly, it was just so fun and so childlike to produce that song. And we would turn it into like a bass and a random sample and things like that. So that's kind of where the song started. And I'd had a lyric idea sitting in my phone for a while of this idea of like, just be a good throne, and just this very cheeky, sexy vibe of like, just do what I tell you, you know, just be a good boy. And I kind of took it and ran with it for this song. And I was like, I just want to make this song about that. And yeah, that's kind of how the song came to be. We didn't really think too hard about song structure or traditional instrumentation or what genre this needs to belong to or anything like that. We just wanted to make something that we all liked and that excited all of us. And that's kind of how Throne was born.
That's amazing. Now, another song that you did I really liked was Turn Our Main, 250,000 Spotify streams as of this recording.
Or Tumor Me. Yeah, that's...
I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Hindi's not one of the languages that you speak, so it's totally fine. But that is a Hindi song. I love that song. That song also came to be from a very organic place. I had been single for about a year at that point, and I was just very focused on my career. I'd just done a show assisting another artist, and we had flown to Africa to do this show. And I was on the way back home, and I was just feeling super grateful for the opportunity, but also for myself and the growth I'd had and the amount I had invested and focused upon myself. And so that song was really a love letter to my own self, saying like, it's just you and me, and I will dedicate my whole life to you and just love you through everything. So that song is just me talking to me. And I showed it to an A&R friend of mine, and he worked at Sony at the time, and he showed it to his boss, and they loved it. And so we had a single deal for that song that came out under Sony, and they were very keen to have a feature on it. And so they reached out to Nick Hill, and Nick Hill is amazing. He's also an independent artist back home in India, and his voice is just absolutely incredible. So he hopped on the song. By the time he did, I kind of had everything already arranged out. The production was done. I had already kind of figured out vocal arrangement. So it was very easy for us to record. The only thing was we were still in the pandemic. So he was recording in his own little home studio, and I was recording in my own little home studio, and we never really got to meet, which is the only thing I wish we'd gotten to do with the song. But it just turned out so great. I'm so proud of that song. I know that this song in particular, there's a lot of people on this side of the pond that really listen to it and love it, even though they don't understand a single word. They feel the emotion. And I often get told like, yeah, that song just touches my heart. It makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. I'm like, yes, that's how you should feel. I'm glad it translates beyond language.
I agree completely. And like the pandemic was the best time for even though it was not that we were all locked in, but we were able to connect with people remotely as well. Like I never thought that I would be able to have conversations with people in all the way in Malaysia or something like that. Yeah, for podcast conversations, or even Australia during that time. So it's amazing that even though it was one of the darkest times in our lifetimes, that there were some glimmers of hope.
Yeah, I felt like so many artists just took it and ran with it. A lot of people made their best art during the pandemic, and a lot of independent artists got the attention they deserved during the pandemic, at least in India, which is where I was throughout the pandemic. You know, there were no movies coming out, labels were not putting out any songs. And so everyone was just looking at independent artists, and it was incredible. I've watched so many people grow from strength to strength in such a dark time. But I feel like that's art. You know, our artists will take the most painful, gruesome things and turn them into something of beauty, which is incredible.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one song like we gotta talk about is your latest single. It's Elevator. I like it. So how is this song similar or different to your other previous singles that you released?
I feel like Elevator, Throne, and Daddy are like sisters. They all kind of came from the same place where didn't really have much of a concept, just wanted to get in, have fun, kind of had something lying around in the back of my mind and like applied it to whatever we were coming up with. But for Elevator, I worked with Connor, who goes by Quiet Sun. And Connor and I just got in the studio. I was still very deep into Age of Pleasure by Janelle Monáe. And I was also listening to a lot of the Carters, the Beyonce and Jay-Z album. And I just went in and I was still writing off the high of writing Throne. And I was like, I want to make more music like this. It's so unique. It's so different. It's so fun. It's so campy and queer. And I kind of just want to keep doing that. And we started off by laying down just vocal ideas. I was just humming. We came up with so many harmonies. And then Connor took all of it, sampled it, reversed it, chopped it up, and it turns into like that beginning section that you hear underneath Elevator. You hear that, ah. Those are just all my vocals just flipped over all kinds of different ways. And we kind of started there and just took it wherever we wanted to go. I had this concept of elevator, let me elevate ya. And this idea of turning it into a manifestation song of like, I'm riding up this elevator of my career. Nothing can stop me. When I get to the top, all my favorite artists are going to be there to greet me. And that's kind of like the picture I wanted to paint for myself. And so that's why the little it sounds the way it does, because we wanted it to feel what it feels like when an elevator just goes up really fast, or when you're like climbing up a roller coaster and you kind of just feel the pressure. And so we were just going off of the emotion and the picture that we were painting, and we were using all kinds of weird sounds. I think at one point we used like random like analog video game sounds and like sampled our voices, just strange instrumentation, really. But we made it work. I feel both all three, Throne, Daddy Era, and Elevator, kind of pushed me. I feel like there's art that makes you go, whoa, you know, I can feel this vision coming to life, but I feel like my brain is like stretching and expanding as I'm working on this. And those were all songs where I feel like I really grew as a producer and a songwriter and an artist. I love this song. I'm so glad it's out.
I'm glad it's out too. And it's amazing how much like when you said elevator, I was like thinking of like going on like those roller coasters. I was thinking of going, I transported back to Disneyland to talk about, and I like especially the Guardians of the Galaxy Breakout, and then also also Indiana Jones, and not to mention the Matterhorn as well. And under those 4 rides especially.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's definitely the feeling we wanted, was just this like feeling of excitement where your gut tightens and you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? We wanted to capture that in a song.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what have been some of the challenges that you face staying in the music industry, and how have you overcome those obstacles?
Ooh, wow. I feel like the biggest one, regardless of what specifics you get told, especially as an AFAB person, a femme presenting person, what you hear very often is, oh, don't do that. Don't produce, or like, don't say so and so. Don't give this feedback. Like all of these things like that you shouldn't do, which I feel like is very limiting and very wrong, honestly. I remember at the beginning of my career, I was still in music school, and I was interested in producing my own music. And I talked to someone who was already in the industry that at the time I was close to. And they said to me, yeah, I don't think you should do that. I think you should just stick to singing and songwriting. Leave the production to someone else. And I took it so literally at the time. I was like, oh, I guess that's not for me, and I shouldn't do it. And I didn't for a while. But what I found is, because I know how to, vocal produce, and because I know how to produce in general, and because I know how mixing and mastering works, when I walk into a session, I know exactly what to ask for. I know what I want my voice to sound like, and say there's a bunch of FX running on my voice. I know how to manipulate my voice to suit it. So I'm a better artist and a better recording artist for it. I'm a better producer for it. And I get to have more control over how my art is perceived and how it sounds. So I think that's a really big thing, is a lot of women and AFAB people just get underestimated a lot. And I think at some point you just have to say, no, I'm going to try it. What's the harm in trying it? What's the harm in learning more, in being different? Should do it.
Absolutely. There's no harm with that. Besides, you'd be a better qualified candidate in the artistry now that you have producers, because the thing is, it's better to have a production, not just be a singer, songwriter, but also producer as well. Because just in case you might need, like, there's so many incredible singers and who are also phenomenal songwriters that have done great work. Like, look at Ryan Tedder. Look at Taylor Swift. Those are amazing songwriters and producers.
Yeah, and even like Ariana Grande, she comps her own vocals. She produces her own vocals. Beyonce has gotten to the point where she learned how to use Premiere Pro because she wanted her visuals to look a certain way, and she wanted to learn how to do it, so she did it herself. And those are people who have giant teams. They have a whole machine behind them, and they learn anyway. They're better for it. The reason they are so meticulous and so legendary is because of it.
And it feels like today's artists either A, expect somebody to do it for themselves, or B, don't have the initiative.
I feel like it's less that artists don't have the initiative, honestly. I feel like a lot of us get bad advice. I think the few of us that don't get bad advice maybe just don't have the financial means or the time to do it. Some of us are working several jobs and just don't have the opportunity to do it. Or we have people around us who, if they don't give bad advice, they at least tell us, no, you don't need to do that. You're fine. It's just a bunch of yes men. I think that's the problem. Because I feel like if you left an artist alone in a room and you told them you can do whatever you want, artists would choose to learn. They would choose to explore. That's their entire job is to explore. So they would push themselves. I think it's a lot of the times it's the environments we get placed in that we're told things that make us malleable to and limited in the way we approach our art.
Absolutely. It's better to be malleable than not be, or just be able to go with the flow than just saying and being surrounded by yes people.
100%.
All right, so we gotta start winding down our conversation. So who are your dream collaborators? The singers, the songwriters, musicians, and producer, and how would they enhance your sound?
Oh my gosh. I think I would love Beyonce is always at the top of that list forever. Has always been at the top of that list. I would love to, if not collaborate, at least one day like get to sing with her. She's my everything. I feel like that woman musically raised me. So I feel like that's number one. Frank Ocean's definitely number two. I would say also Chloe Bailey, and Ray. I would love to work with Ray. I feel like all of them are such ferocious artists and they have such unique points of view. And they're all so they bring something to the table that's extremely challenging and meticulous. And you can obviously tell every single one of them has deeply honed their skills. And I feel like there would be so much that I could absorb like a sponge from every single one of them.
Absolutely. It's better. It's amazing to soak up with a sponge. So we got to talk about social media. What are your favorite social media platforms?
I personally love TikTok the most. I think that it's a very honest place. I think it's a place where artists just get to be a little more, for lack of a better word, unhinged and a little bit more unfiltered. Sometimes with Instagram, I find like, there's this whole thing about the aesthetic and how your grid looks and et cetera, et cetera. And I think with TikTok, it's just people just want to hear what's on your mind. They don't care if you filter yourself. The least filtering, the better for them. And I enjoy it. I think it's great. It creates for really fun, funny, and just human content that is so fun to also not just consume but create for fans.
Absolutely. So last question, are you ready? Besides social media, where can they find your music?
Everywhere on streaming platforms, everywhere that you listen to music. On YouTube, I go as Nikitaa with 2 A's. That's Nikitaa.
Oh, wonderful. So, guys, how do you miss an episode of the Jacob Elyachar Podcast? Visit our channels on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, Spotify, and Spreaker. The Jacob Elyachar Podcast, JACOBELYACHAR. Now, are you on social media? Because I'm on social media too. Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, and YouTube. Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. And if you want to see my take on Nikita's music, visit shakes-shake.com. Once again, shakes-shake.com. Nikitaa, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Jacob.
You're so welcome. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, have a great one, everybody. Goodbye.